In a working class family in Lowell, Massachusetts, Lori learned the principles of sacrifice, hard work, and grit. The first in her family to graduate college, Lori earned a scholarship to play Division I volleyball at Georgetown University. After college, she joined former Congressman Marty Meehan's staff, working her way up to chief of staff. After serving Massachusetts for nearly 10 years, Lori moved to the
Megaphone
private.
yourself in. Megaphone, please. If you could right-click megaphone, amplify your voice. Amplify your voice.
Oh, I'm seeing this. Sorry. You're not able to hear me?
No, it's just if you amplify your voice, that would be better. Megaphone.
Okay. Let's talk louder.
No, amplify your voice with host.
Oh, I see, with host tools.
Yes, host tools. Amplify
Got
your
it.
voice.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. You want to do the intro again? You're welcome to.
Alrighty, let's just start that over. Apologies for anyone that was hearing that before. All right, Congresswoman Lori Trahan proudly serves Massachusetts' 3rd District. Growing up in a working class family in Lowell, Massachusetts, Lori learned the principles of sacrifice, hard work, and grit. The first in her family to graduate college, Lori earned a scholarship to play Division I volleyball at Georgetown University. After college, she joined former Congressman Marty Meehan's staff, working her way up to chief of staff. After serving Massachusetts for nearly 10 years, Lori moved to the private sector as the only female executive at a tech company, and later a co-founder of a woman-owned and operated consulting firm focused on elevating women to leadership positions. Lori successfully ran for Congress in 2018, motivated to return to public service after seeing the Trump administration's gridlock and lack of accountability. Sworn in alongside a historically diverse class of new members, Lori immediately got to work for the people of the 3rd District. Now, as a member of the powerful House Committee on Energy and Commerce, Lori is an advocate for 3rd District residents, working on expanding access to affordable, quality health care, tackling climate change, protecting kids online, fighting discrimination, and more. When the coronavirus pandemic hit in March of 2020, Lori rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She secured hundreds of millions of dollars in federal relief funding to keep workers and businesses afloat, ensure hospitals and health centers remained open, and shorten the Commonwealth's road to recovery. As vaccines were being distributed, Lori worked around the clock to ensure individual communities had the resources and support necessary to get shots into arms and save lives. As families across the 3rd District recover, Lori is working to ensure that no one is left behind. I'm humbled in welcoming Congresswoman Trahan to the stage. Thank you for joining us, Lori.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to speak with you all today. I can say without a doubt that this is the first time I've ever spoken as an avatar to a virtual room of panelists and audience members. So I hope you'll cut me some slack, since I'm far more accustomed so far to Zoom meetings and live streams than I am to the metaverse. But all jokes aside, it is great to see how many people we have gathered here, and to see the excitement about the potential of the metaverse to help facilitate new experiences like this conference. Even in its infancy, metaverse apps have shown the potential to unlock unique experiences, and they've done so for people of all ages. Immersive educational experiences can transform standard field trips into excursions all around the world. Students can travel through history, interacting with recreations of historical places and events to enhance their curiosity. And teachers can reimagine the classic planetarium field trip as an immersive journey floating through galaxies, all from the convenience of a classroom. In other words, it sounds like Miss Frizzle's magic school bus field trips could soon be a thing of the past. And I realize I probably just dated myself with that reference, but the data we've seen so far backs up what I'm saying. A recent study showed promising results from students who rated higher levels of presence, enjoyment, and retention when content was taught through a VR device as opposed to an old school video. Even entire nations, such as Tuvalu, are leveraging the metaverse to preserve their culture and history for future generations to experience and learn from. But the benefits of the metaverse haven't and won't stop at the classroom or at the museum. Another promising application is its use in healthcare. doctors and surgeons in training can leverage VR devices to safely practice procedures where instructors give real-time feedback. And researchers have already begun using extended reality devices to treat a range of mental health illnesses, from depression to post-traumatic stress disorder to Alzheimer's. Each of these potential uses are exciting and rightfully so, but cannot afford to ignore the risks of AR/VR spaces. We've seen what happens when we go down that road. We've watched Washington become enamored by new and emerging technologies. I had a front row to that trend, first as a congressional staffer in the late 90s and early 2000s. I saw it from the tech perspective when I left the House to work for an ad tech company. I watched in real time as we shifted away from the early days of the internet and toward the embrace of sophisticated methods of surveillance and surveillance-based advertising that have come to rule every second we spend online today. And now I'm seeing it as a member of Congress that Washington still hasn't been able to keep up. Time after time, platforms have made promises to protect users and consumers, and it's only later that we learn, usually from a whistleblower these days, that recommendations from so-called trust and safety teams are cast aside by executives who are focused on growth and profits at all costs. It's this trend that makes me wary of more immersive platforms. And it's great to be here with so many people who are dedicated to ensuring the safety of this technology that has been gaining more and more popularity each day. I want to emphasize that word, safety, because the emphasis on safety in the metaverse is incredibly important to me, especially when I see children engage with early forms of the metaverse and the games they play. We have a pretty good idea of the physiological dangers of VR devices already: the eye strain, nausea, the loss of spatial awareness. Researchers are already looking into the development of addiction, aggression, and dissociation for children using the metaverse, which makes sense given the intersectionality of the metaverse with online games. And we have early studies, including recently from Stanford University, that have found false memories forming more often in children who engaged in VR experiences. After all, it's well documented already that children have much more difficulty distinguishing fantasy from reality, including recognizing advertising from media content in television. So in a metaverse designed to be fully immersive and adaptive to users' reactions, it's reasonable to expect that it'll be even harder for young users to distinguish ads from genuine experiences. That's especially worrisome when you consider the kind of data that can be collected with virtual reality devices, things like eye movements, voice inflection, body poses, and more. That's data that's going to be collected on all of us, children and adults alike. And we know advertisers are eager to get their hands on that kind of information. So when people enter the metaverse, everything about our presence can be documented, stored, and used by those who will pay for access to our data to influence and manipulate us in real time. And as we all know well by now, in some cases, it could even be shared with third parties and governments without our knowledge. There's no silver bullet to mitigate all of these risks or remedy each of the problems we're seeing crop up in the metaverse's infancy, but there are steps we can take, long overdue steps, to address some of the underlying issues that have permeated tech of all kinds over the past 2 decades, and issues like those associated with surveillance advertising that will continue to exist as the metaverse grows and develops. That's why we must pass comprehensive privacy legislation like the American Data Privacy and Protection Act to ensure companies are engaging in consumer-friendly data practices, and so users have more control over their data. Data minimization and loyalty principles will be even more important in the metaverse, given the volume of sensitive data generated every second we're online. But we also can't afford to stop at privacy. The high levels of harassment and abuse on social media and in video games have already become prevalent in the metaverse. In fact, the harms we know all too well from platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snap can often be worse in the metaverse, where and a sense of physical presence can make these negative experiences even more visceral. According to the Center for Countering Digital Hate, a violating incident occurs about once every 7 minutes in VR chat, where minors can easily bypass age verification checks. Making matters worse, children and teens can easily stumble on adult-themed worlds where they can be exposed to harassment by strangers, soliciting virtual sex and making unwanted sexual advances, even when parental guards and content policies are present. Their systemic issues over to their new metaverse products. And as we've seen already, the consequences could be severe. Allowing the well-documented harms of our current widely used online platforms to continue into the metaverse shouldn't be an option. And although companies developing metaverse platforms have codes of conduct and acceptable use policies, it's unclear how well they're sticking to their promises and how they're being enforced. We need to change that. So the question that I'm sure many of you have, and the one that I'll answer before you even get to ask it, is what lawmakers should be doing about the harms that already exist in the metaverse and the risks that have the potential to get much worse. Beyond privacy, we should be looking to implement comprehensive transparency laws. For decades, our nation has demanded that companies refrain from deceiving consumers, from engaging in practices like promising a safe platform while simultaneously ignoring the dangers that clearly exist for everyone to see. I believe we need to do that for technology companies too, and the emerging popularity of the metaverse has only increased the urgency for us to do so. That's why in February, I introduced the Digital Services Oversight and Safety Act, or DSOSA for short. This comprehensive transparency legislation will hold platforms accountable for the promises they make to consumers, to parents, and advertisers. It establishes a new Bureau of Digital Services Oversight and Safety within the Federal Trade Commission. And it tasks the new Bureau with investigating systemic risks, things like the dissemination of illegal content, discrimination, and amplification of harmful content. The Bureau would also be tasked with issuing transparency and disclosure requirements, as well as guidance on content-neutral safety processes and design features that will be essential as the metaverse grows in size and usership. Most metaverse platforms would be covered by this Bureau, allowing for transparency and accountability of their development while also guiding them on best practices to protect their users. One of the things I believe is most important in DSOSA is the requirement for companies, including VR companies, to assess risks on an ongoing basis and develop and document the ways they monitor and manage them. These risk assessment and mitigation reports are then audited by a third party. The reason I say it's so important is because this will help shift the incentive away from the blind pursuit of profitability toward the creation of a platform that prioritizes user safety and engagement. After all, it's rare that a company can succeed on a business model of intentionally providing a harmful or even outright dangerous experience for consumers, particularly our children. One last thing I'll point out in DSOSA is the creation of an Office of Independent Research Facilitation, something I know many of you tuning in may be excited to hear about. Unlike some other approaches out there, this legislation would set up a system through which certified researchers, those affiliated with an academic institution or organization recognized by the Bureau, can study the impacts of platforms, their content moderation practices, their product design and algorithms, and of course, the fallout from those decisions. This portion of DSOSA requires that large covered platforms, those with 66 million monthly users, host two separate ad libraries, one public and one just for researchers who can look into ad targeting practices. It also requires that those same platforms provide researchers with the access necessary to understand the ways in which types of content are being amplified. Allowing researchers more insight and clarity into metaverse platforms will be crucial to helping users, parents, and the public as a whole wrap our heads around the impacts of design decisions and new features. And of course, to answer the question I asked myself a couple of minutes ago, transparency into the opaque processes and algorithms deployed by these platforms provides the information we need as policymakers to craft evidence-based recommendations for risk mitigation. Questions like, what's the best process for platforms to detect illegal conduct? What kinds of advertisements and content are reaching children? Or how these technologies are impacting teen mental health? These are questions scholars are still working to understand today, and frankly, they could have benefited from more data years ago. That's why legislation like DeSosa is long overdue, and frankly, it's why we need to get it done. Now, I know folks have a lot of questions, so I'll conclude by this. I'm not anti-metaverse, and I'm not anti-tech. I'm a mom, first and foremost, and I care deeply about what my two young girls and what all of our children are experiencing when they log online. The metaverse has remarkable promise for all the different areas we discussed already, but the dangers are very real. We cannot let that promise be dragged down or diminished by the weight of profit at all cost designs. Creating safe and welcoming virtual worlds for everyone is going to require buy-in and investment from all of us, companies, public interest groups, policymakers, and most importantly, users. I look forward to working with you all toward the solutions we need to ensure the safety of the metaverse. So thank you all again for inviting me to speak with you all today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Jonathan, you're up for the question.
Yes, please. I would like to know what you think about adding a biometric system to them to safeguard children from thefts.
Could you please repeat that? Please repeat that, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm asking whether I said I would Miss Laurie thinks about adding a biometric system in the metaverse to help safeguard children.
Adding a what system?
I think I understand the question, so let me take a stab and then you tell me if I answered it. I think age verification is just one piece of the larger problem of online safety. We need to start with comprehensive online safety and privacy measures for all, regardless of age. All the measures in legislation like ADPPA and DeSosa apply to and benefit children and adults alike. At a baseline, safety features such as personal bubbles and block lists that benefit adults will benefit children too. On top of this, metaverse companies need to build additional features addressing minors' safety. Now, what's important here is that companies need to understand how likely their products will be accessed by kids, even if it's not their target audience. There are many ways to know when kids are spending time online that don't include blatant program surveillance and facial recognition. Right now, the majority of metaverse users are minors. Building in safety features and turning the most protective versions on by default is absolutely necessary.
And Emily, you're up next for a question.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Emily Troutner. I'm a clinical researcher and regulatory affairs in Silicon Valley. I was a pioneer in the internet, being an ISP provider back in 1992. And I worked for initiatives for children, but some were accepted, some were not. So I'm in a status of deja vu right now. The companies I work with create humanistic, human-like, very human-like avatars for businesses. But we also have ways of creating your grandmother. We also have ways of using voice. My current research with children with depression has been that they prefer the voice interface. But in many of the regulations and the topics that are being discussed, voice and interactive chats with voice and synthetic voices aren't even mentioned in the laws. So what I'm hoping to do is to share with you, Lori, and others here in California, the best practices and the research that I'm working on to incorporate that also. So I feel that we're really heading in the right direction, but we have to look at all facets of this. And children are voice first. I teach 2 years old how to look at diabetes and when the family has cancer and things like that. And just sitting there giving them pictures and color books doesn't cut it. They create little stories and interact with voice. And that is a powerful tool, but I don't want them to fall into the issues that you talked about and not have the guardrails, the privacy, and the intimacy protected in their lives. Thank you for all you're doing. I would like to know how to contact you or how to work, what you think I should raise the issues here. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, certainly we're going to benefit not just from your most recent body of research, but also how long you have been a leader in this space. So thank you for your comments. We will find you. I'm assured by my team that we will be able to get your contact information so that we can, if normally there would be a chat that I could drop our information in, but we will make that available to audience members because this is a really important point, right? We know the risks to our young people in terms of mental health. And we want to make sure that we're creating a space that by design and by default actually lifts their mental health wellness. And so I think we could definitely benefit from the research that you already have and all research ongoing. So thank you.
And Congressman, this is Kavi Perlman from XRSI, the host of Metaverse Safety Week. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you officially and personally, and also thank you for launching this initiative to provide guidance and include metaverse technologies. I'm really also encouraged by your work together with Australia's Safety Commissioner, Leigh-Mann Grant, who also graciously accepted for a keynote address tonight. And I just, I already am in contact with your team, sharing information on extended reality. So all I can say is a lot of the people are thinking, oh, the regulators don't get it. When I look at you and when I speak to the team, along with a few other regulators, in fact, I Jason Turkey and Professor Kathy Castor, like they are all actually very much on hands. And I know that the big tech companies, policy folks are watching, some of the CEOs are watching, and I think you get it. And I'm so thankful for you for extending that and investing, gathering that knowledge, bringing it to Washington, helping everybody understand what we need together. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you for that. I do work with some pretty amazing partners, not just in the Congress, but I think most importantly, our outside groups. We have been able to benefit and frankly, just write some responsible, forward-looking legislation with the help of our researchers, our outside groups, our advocates. So I learned long ago, you do not do this job alone. And so I appreciate the contact, the expertise, and the urgency, frankly. We have a lot to do. We know we're operating from behind, and I'm motivated every day, not just by my children at home, but also by the dedication of the members on our committee. And also the amazing, folks that we have in our teams, our staff that are, just continually moving the ball forward and looking at new ways for us to provide safe environments. So please continue working with our team, and we'll get there together. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jackie, you're next.
Hi there. I'm Dr. Jackie Taylor. I'm here with you from the UK. Delighted to hear all you had to say, Laurie. Thank you for all you do. I can only echo what Kara says. From my perspective, I work in the counterterrorism domain, and so bringing some of the skills from that domain into the metaverse is a very short leap. In the sense that what we work with every day is technology that's been weaponized against our society. Now, I've been doing the research in this arena for over 22 years, and it's been very interesting for me to see that Generation Z, are under 30s, tend to take a different view to some of what you've expressed. Certainly my natural instincts to on the risks. And I think we need to find a way to navigate this with their voices included. They're largely not included in this debate. And if what we try to do is use the same accountability structures that we've used before, do know we'll fail. So we need to be a little bit more lateral in our thinking. I'd be very interested to know how we might work together sort of across the pond, so to speak, because I think that there's many things to learn in the current war, first ever cyber war that we're currently defending with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I also think that it's important for our young people to have a voice, because we can't be the gatekeepers of these metaverses the way we've tried to be the gatekeepers of our online space. So I think it needs a more radical approach and a more lateral approach. And I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. First, thank you for your work. I don't think I could overstate how the EU has really served as a model and a place for the United States to really follow in terms of updating our laws. And so I've really enjoyed speaking to regulators and policymakers in the EU to inform how we can not just catch up, but also further collaborate. One of the things that we introduced is an international Center for Research, Information, and Environment for that, so that we can have that kind of collaboration, so that we can wring out the lessons that you're already seeing in your implementation, so that we get it right, the first time, and we're able to iterate on that work. And that is going to require data access and collaboration across our borders. And then, to the point, one of the reasons why DSOSA is so important is because it lays a foundation for transparency that we don't yet have in the United States. Having these risk assessments and mitigation reports are going to surface a lot of commitments made, and then challenges that frankly should be shared across platforms, especially as we evolve these technologies. And so I will say that, collaboration is going to be key, both internationally, as we deal with so many challenges you named, the biggest ones in terms of anti-terrorism, the war in Ukraine, breaches to our collective security, but then also in responsible and safe design as we, venture from traditional online spaces to the metaverse. And so I am fully committed to that collaboration continuing as we go forward.
Laura, the next.
Wonderful. Thank you, Congresswoman Trahan. I think we're moving through to the next phase of our programming this morning.
And thank you so much for showing up here and inspiring us.
Is it in front? Thank you so much for having me. This is, I feel as though it was a successful, first debut in the metaverse.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's have some stars, hearts, and
Yes.
claps for the Congresswoman, please. I mean,
Well, you all set me up for success, so thank you.
we often
You're so
complain, the regulators don't get it. I mean, you won't get anyone better than this. The Congresswoman stepping into all space VR to confront the realities of our times. What a amazing beginning of safety. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Until next time, take care, everyone.
Thank you.